Thank you so much. Everybody listen to the lady.
Yes, absolutely forgot to record that whole intro. But all yours, my love. Take the floor.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am really honored to be here with you all. I think so much of Mandy, and I am excited to share what I can and what I know. And so I am a former professor and other things where I spent my life behind some PowerPoint slides and had to dance around like a Australian shepherd to get people to pay any attention to me. And so mostly because they didn't want to be there, but that's a different story. I really like to be interactive and customize what uh, I share with you all to like who's in the room, right? And I'm not just gonna like throw a slide presentation at you. I want to make this like as interactive as you all are willing to be. And so I would love to know in the chatty chat, like, what are you working on? Or like, do you have a business? Do you have an idea? Are you here for inspiration? Like, what is it that you do or want to do? Let's say two things. What is it that you do or want to do? And then like, what one thing are you hoping, wanting, intending most to learn from our time together? Because I will like read this as we chat and I will do my best to incorporate specific examples. And for anybody who missed the reason that I'm in my car and you all watch the sun slowly go down, I just found out a few days ago that my 5-year-old's first parent education night at her brand new school was like the hour before this. And so I was inside sitting on the floor tracing a triangle with the teacher and wondering why other people weren't being more interactive. Also trolling for parent child friend matches. If I'm being really honest, why I came in person instead of on the Zoom. And now I'm here with you all. And my kids are probably 5 and 2 girls, probably watching Frozen 2 for the 312th time. And it's cool because I get to be here with you all. So thank you for being here. And I'm excited to see what you're up to. Mandy is a real estate investor building a women's group and recently out of the job. Congratulations on your freedom, Mandy, cousin McAlister. Such a big deal. Victoria runs a few businesses hoping to learn more about how to be more forward and self-promote with more confidence. Ooh, that's so exciting. Yes, I just got chills. So that matters is what that means. Real estate investor, yay, Lauren. Alexander is writing a book for private lending, launching a fund for private lending. And what I'm looking for is inspiration, and I'm on the lookout for a mentor coach. Oh, wow. Hello. Let's see if it's an energetic match here. Hemant, please feel free to put the phonetics of how to pronounce your name because I would like to say it right in the chat. Real estate investor, rapidly scale in the current market and leave your W-2. Yes. That's what I did for 6 years was I helped women quit their jobs. I wrote a book about it, all the things. And along the way, I developed this method for going on and monetizing top podcasts that I use for myself. And then people started asking me to teach it. And I was like, no, I'm a business coach. And then after like 2 years and some pretty big endorsements in the podcasting space, I finally got out of my own way and was like, okay, I'll give the people what they want. So that's like my very, very short bio. Real estate investor, financial coach, launching a multi-author publishing company. Cool. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, thank you all for sharing. And I'm just gonna make my engine stop beeping. Battery discharge this. Okay, so yes, professors. All right, so you're here because you wanna learn how to get in front of more people and make 6 figures or more with podcast guesting, right? How many of you listen to podcasts? I can only see Karen and Mandy. I see that you listen to podcasts, Mandy. You do too, Karen? Okay. Yes, thank you for putting it in the background that I can in front of yourself. All right, Alexandria, Divine, awesome. Okay, now I want to ask you, what do you do? Like, what else are you doing when you're listening to podcasts? Because my guess is that you're not staring at a white wall. Ain't nobody got time for that. right? So what else are you doing when you're listening to podcasts? When do you choose to listen to podcasts? Mandy's driving. Yep. Running, walking, cleaning the house, driving, everything but listening. Love it. Okay. Yes. All right. So like totally laundry. I went to my brother-in-law's house this weekend for 48 hours. I did 4 freaking loads of laundry, you all. 4. Hi, mom life. Okay. So, um, so all right. What you all have shared here. Hey, mom. Hey, moms. Thank you. Listening to podcasts a lot, driving and having lunch and dinner. Okay, beautiful. So driving, running, walking, cleaning the house, laundry, right? Eating. Most of these things, maybe with the exception of eating. I'm looking. Yes. Most of these things are not advisable slash illegal to be like scrolling social media and doing at the same time, right? So when we think about ways of, you know, getting in front of new people, attracting clients to us, we think about the stuff we're normally taught, like posting on social, being consistent, um, maybe running ads of some kind, like maybe SEO. Actually, what are you all doing right now to get in front of people and um, let's just say get clients? Not that we like get people as a thing, but that's the language that people use, right? Website SEO and social media, networking groups. Yep, cool. Yes. I love that. So what I want to posit here about podcasts is that like it is probably the most leveraged type of networking that you can do. So like the clients that I book on podcasts, almost every single one of them, if not all of them, they come to me and they say, I love my business. I'm good at what I do. And I don't want to live my life on social. Like, I don't want to live my life by someone else's freaking algorithm, right? So, SEO, we know that algorithm changes more than once a day. And we know that we only know part of what they share anyway, right? Social media, oh my goodness, right? Like, hi, living and dying by the algorithm, right? And with podcasts, you're creating a very leveraged conversation that's going to live on social, or it's going to live on the internet as long as like Apple exists, as long as the internet and all these hosting platforms exist. It doesn't have the half-life of uh, a social media post, right? So if you love networking, if you're a person that's like, I just love connecting with people. Hey, I get clients from connecting with people, but I'm going to, you know, have a panic attack of networking one-on-one appointments if I keep doing them at the level I'm doing or whatever stuff is shutting down or whatever. The deal with podcast guesting is that it is a 20, 30, 45-minute conversation that is ultimately just someone asking you about what you're passionate about. And it's getting shared not only with that host, but with their audience that already trusts them. So you're leveraging the trust that the host has garnered with their audience, and you are getting to borrow it, right? Which is so, so, so cool. And there's really no other uh, marketing method like it. So does that make sense? Right? Also, it's free. Also, it's the other thing is not only are you leveraging trust, but you're keeping someone's attention or more attention than you would if you had to stop the scroll with an ad or with a social post or a video or whatever, or SEO, right? So nowhere else does someone listen to you for 30 minutes, right? Or longer. And what this does is it creates, when you get in front of the right audiences and you show up as like a really value driven, better than average podcast guest who's in it not to be transactional, but to build a relationship, which is like the heart of good networking, right? It creates incoming leads that are almost as warm as a referral. So if you're a person who's sold based on referrals, you're like, I would love to have a referral based business. Hey, these hosts, sometimes they become your clients. Sometimes they become referral sources. Often their audience is going to be like, whoa, like you're the person I didn't even know I was looking for. How can I work with you? Right? And I'm talking about like high ticket offers, right? Like for myself, my clients, typically they're getting whatever, getting an average of like one high ticket client. So several $1,000s, 3, 5, 7, 10 per podcast appearance. Right. And so the reason is because we're showing up like out of our values. Right. We're showing up out of the values of like being a good human and sharing what we know and inviting and leaning back. I'm getting excited. I'm starting to sweat talking about this. Sorry. I'm glowing is what I'm doing, is I'm glowing. And so any questions about that? Cindy says, I've had guys, plural, from Wall Street reach out to me after one of my podcast interviews. Yeah. And listen, you all, let's see if there are any questions. There are 2.6 million podcasts, and that number grows every month. All right. And so, does anybody here have their own podcast? Okay, cool. Is anybody thinking about starting their own podcast? Just Mandy's thinking about it. Karen's thinking about it. All right. All right, Alexandria, starting one. Victoria. Okay. Hey, month, starting one. Or not yet. Okay. Okay. Next year. Launching in 45 days. Super. Okay. Interviews, lead to more interviews because they're always looking for guests, of course. Yeah. All right. Good question, Mandy. I'm going to answer that. But first, I want to say, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, number one, I highly recommend that you go on a bunch of other ones before you start your own. Reason being, you're starting from an audience of 0. Everybody else has an audience, right? And you are going to learn with every interview. Not only are you going to get in front of new people for free, but you're also going to learn like, what you don't, right? People told me for years, oh, you should start a podcast, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, not until I figure out how to do it in a way that's right for me, right? Because for a long time, when I thought about starting a podcast, I was like, how do I not make it like the churn of, oh, I need to record another episode, and where am I going to find guests, and like, how is it going to be good, and oh, I'm spending all this money, and how do I get the ROI, and blah, 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 right? And it wasn't until I was like, I had been on over 100 podcasts, and I had learned all the things that I didn't like, and I had learned what moved the needle and what got me clients, and like what I could bring to a podcast of my own that was unique and what would just feel really fun, right? Like the name of my business is Life with Passion. It would have been incongruent for me to do anything other than like what felt fun rather than like a big fat should, right? And I learned that by responding, like, what do I like? What do I not like about all these other people, right? Because what you're doing is you're setting up a massive level of complexity. Even if you pay someone to do everything but interview, right? You're setting up a massive level of complexity as a marketing platform for your business when you start your own show. Now, I have my own. There's nothing wrong with it, but something to consider. The other thing, it's much more leverage to show up on somebody else's for free, walk away. They do all the work. They edit it for you. They promote it for you, right? And the other thing is, if you're starting your own, the number one way that like the top gurus who make millions of dollars a year as a podcast host teach to grow your podcast, go on other people's podcasts. The end, right? So regardless of where you fall on that spectrum, you can totally do this without your own podcast. You have your own podcast, you're starting one. This still needs to be a priority for you. Okay? So if you want to be in this world. Does that make sense? Cool. So yes, I like Mandy did. I want to invite you all to just ask questions so that I make sure, rather than being like, oh, here's this presentation and save your questions for the end. If you're burning question, like let's get it answered so that you don't have to remember your question the whole time and not remember anything else that we talked about here, right? So if you're already going on other people's podcasts and you have an episode airing, what's a best practice for sharing? Ooh, that rhymes. Mandy wants to know. Great question. All right. So what I recommend is um uh what I recommend is that um you tell them from the start that you are going to share this thing. Okay? Because to tie in the frame of what we were just talking about, that host has put literal, virtual, maybe both, blood, sweat, and tears into building their podcast, building an audience, right? They have invested time, they have invested money, they have invested lots of resources, and it really matters to them. Usually it's tied to some kind of a business for them, right? And most people, I learned this from John Lee Dumas, who is a big podcaster. He runs the podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire, and it's one of the top business podcasts. And um, he's been doing it for a decade, and he makes millions of dollars a year doing it. And he's become a friend. And he was one of those people that was like, "Hey, Christine, this is the best approach to podcast guesting I've ever seen. How about you get over yourself and help people?" Because most people show up to podcasts interviews as a vampire. Okay. They're there, whether or not they know it. Some people know it. You can feel it. Have their talking points in, out. You should be so lucky. Buy my book if you want to know more. Right. Um, Otherwise, maybe they're paying someone to do it for them. And the only reason they're there is to get clients, and you can feel it. Right. And it's just like, hey, they come across, it's stale, whatever. They're there to suck what they can out of the host and the audience and leave. Vampire. And so what this is about is like recognizing the exchange of energy, right? Recognizing what an honor it is that the host is essentially endorsing you to their audience that they have worked so hard to build by having you on. And how do you show up differently because they did that? One way is in the way that you share. Full circle, right? So when an episode airs, if it's a bigger podcast, they're typically going to give you some assets. They're going to give you a graphic. They're going to give you like an audiogram, right? Or the thing with the waveform, right? They're going to have show notes that you can very easily copy and repurpose. Like they make it pretty easy for you. I recommend that you share it across your stuff wherever you're active. Tag them, reshare their stuff, right? And you can also repurpose every quarter if you want. If you have an email list, put it in an email welcome sequence if it was a kick-ass interview. Sorry if there are children listening. And talking about donkeys. And and like say, hey, here's what I'm so glad you're here. If you're a podcast listener and you want to learn more, like here's an episode I recorded, right? You could put it in your content calendar if you like content calendars, and you can share it share it quarterly. You can share quotes from it. I mean, there's one podcast episode probably has between 6 and 12 posts in it for social. And you can take the ones that worked really well the first time and you can spread them out across whatever you do for marketing. Put it on your website, right? Drive traffic back because that's what the host cares about. And hosts notice and love and care about when you share the episode. Some of them have told me I actually get kind of sad when my guest doesn't share, right? Like they care. It matters because what do they want? They want to grow their audience. They want to grow, the subscribers, the downloads, all that stuff. And it couldn't be easier. Yeah, making it mutually beneficial. Right. Does that answer that question, Mandy? Cool. What other questions do you all have? Because I could go in a lot of different directions here, right? But again, I want to make it like the most.
So can I ask, how do you suggest going about finding and like identifying podcasts that you want to go after and be on?
That's such a good question. Can I share my screen? Is that okay? Let me see if it will let me. Host disabled. All right. Perfect. Let me try now. All right. Let me pull something up for you all. This is one of my favorite tools. This is something that we use all day, every day. Has a free version that will get you what you need for my method. And it's really easy. All right. Listen Notes. Here we go. Listennotes.com. Hopefully there wasn't anything embarrassing in that search history that just pulled up. Don't know, didn't see. Hard to say. We're all friends here. Okay, listennotes.com if my hotspot can hack it. Listennotes.com. All right. So I'm just going to be really like meta and search for my own podcast here. No one's ever asked me that. Here we go. This is me. Half of me. All right. You can go in here and you can search by rank. All right. I don't know if it will give me this info. Okay. I have to go to another one. You can search by rank of all the podcasts in the world. Right? What is listen score? Are you going to pop up for me? No. All right. Hey, let's do this instead. Let's search our fearless Mandy McAlister and see what podcasts that she's been on. I should have put the quotes. I should have been Boolean about it. If anybody else knows what Boolean means, welcome to the Nerd Club. Aha. All right. So the shows that Mandy McAlister with this spelling has been on pop up right here in the episodes tab, okay? So if I'm like, I want to be like Mandy when I grow up, which basically who wouldn't want to be? Let's be honest. I can do what my friend Selena Sue, who is a media, anybody know her name? She's a media, she teaches media for entrepreneurs. She has a course and a big business. And she calls this the follow the leader technique. Okay. And so you go on somebody that you admire, an influencer in your space, and you see where they've appeared. All right. So Mandy's appeared on Multifamily Live, which makes sense. It seems like a good fit. You can see right here that Multifamily Live right now, this month, it's updated every month, is in the top 1% of all of the 2.6 million podcasts plus in the world. All right. This is based on their algorithm, what they call their listen score. And you can see it's a listen score, shows the estimated popularity compared to other public podcasts, 0 to 100, calculated from first and third party data, out of this many podcasts as of, 3 days ago. All right. And so that's to figure out this right here, global rank, simplest and most easiest way to figure out where do I want to appear, right? Now, like in terms of finding those shows, I just shared with you like one approach, the follow the leader technique, right? You can also search by keyword, right? Real estate, book publishing, finances. You can search by the type of audience, um, private lending, fund, investing fund, um, women, right? Like any of those things, right? You can search. Remember, with 2.6 million podcasts, you're never going to run out. So, in case that's a fear, like, stop it, right? So, does that help give you a place to start for Karen and okay, Victoria, awesome. And who was it who asked that I was talking to you? It was Victoria.
It was me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. There you are. Okay, awesome. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's
Okay.
awesome. Thank you.
Yay! You're so welcome. And if you tend to be can get a little bit OCD like me, I'll just go on a tear sometimes and be like, oh, there's this podcast and there's this podcast. Listen Notes makes it really easy to grab the URL and throw it in a Google Sheet, and come back to it later when you want to move to another part of it. All right, awesome. Okay, Cindy says, how do I prevent from feeling like a broken record? I feel like much of my story overlaps between interviews. I agree with you, Cindy. Okay, the best thing that you can do is really find out who's listening. Like, you can find that out from the description, you can find that out from the about, you can listen to an episode, you can ask the host, but then you can pull out the parts of your story that relate to who you're talking to, right? I mean, yeah, I have a friend, her name is Dana Wild. Her podcast is a solo show now, but it's a mindset for entrepreneurs. I'm going to put it in here cuz she's amazing and I love her. She's a 7-figure business owner, Dana Wild, the Mind Aware. And she took publicity training from like the same company that trained Ryan Seacrest and Jimmy Kimmel and like some of these big names, right? And one of the things that has really stuck with me that she shared with me was that they taught her that in creating a personal brand, you basically you can limit it to like 3 positive things and 1 negative thing. Okay, so to give you my example, I would probably talk about something along the lines of like how I love dogs and I have horses, right? So animals. Hey, that's positive. That's fun. Yay, right? It's a point of a connection. I would probably talk about how like I'm this weird mix of like I don't mind getting sweaty and dirty for the horses, but I am not camping and I love luxury, right? So I'm this strange thing, right? And I probably talk about like mom life of like how I was a business owner first, and now I'm trying to figure out how the heck to parent a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I find it very confronting and challenging. And business comes a lot more naturally to me. Okay, so we're talking about that, and then I think you can pick something that you've like survived or you've overcome, or that like Dana would say, "Hey, I only have a high school degree." Something that people would perceive as potentially negative or a setback for her. Mine was a little bit more like triggering and, traumatic. But the reason I started this business and got out of my marketing agency that I was running is because I lost my first daughter in a full term stillbirth. And it was unexpected, unexplained. That was my turning point. And obviously I can share about that now because it's, what I tell my clients is like, it's a scar. It's not a raw, open, gaping wound. Like, of course, I'm going to cry about it forever, right? Of course, I have PTSD from it, right? And it's been 6.5 years. So I've done a lot of work around it, and I don't need anyone to make me okay about it. It's not, the fight that I had with my husband yesterday that I need someone, that I'm oversharing about. It's like, this is a part of my story and I've now integrated it into my life, right? So for those of you who are like, I don't want to be that person, we all have those people in our feed, right? It's like something that you've integrated. Okay. So you could pick any three things that are like, that's great, that's the life. And then you could pick one thing that's been more of a challenge for you. So it can be, Cindy, like the same stuff over and over. I'm going to talk about all that stuff. The thing that makes it different, the thing that makes you different as a guest is when you turn it into a conversation with the host rather than the one-way interview that they're used to doing. They're used to having to get up, ask the questions, carry the conversation, blah, 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 right? And you don't have to be like a crazy performer to do it. You can simply ask them a question back. Treat it more like you're sitting over a table or a virtual table, having your favorite drinks with this person, and they're asking you what you are passionate about, and maybe you ask them something back, because reciprocity, because you're a good human. Instead of being like, hey, look at me, how amazing am I? Ask me more questions. They're already doing that. They're already going to make you look amazing. So like, give them some love back, like, okay, I could just ask Mandy or I could ask Victoria, like, what do you think about that? What have you done to promote a show? Right? Whatever you're talking about, just be curious with the person that you're talking to. Be curious back. Does that make sense? And that's going to switch up the energy, Cindy. That's going to switch up you feeling like a broken record. That's going to help you feel like it's not just talking points on a piece of paper that you have to make sure that you cover, and part of that too is like, how good is the interviewer, right? Like the reason that my podcast is called No One's Ever Asked Me That is because I freaking ask questions they've never been asked and they have to sit there and think about it, right? But if you're on shows, and that is like, whew, that is a serious dopamine hit for me. I'm just saying, when they're like, I've never been asked that before, and they've been on like 500 podcasts, I'm like, my work here is done, right? But exactly, thank you. But at the same time, if you're going on newer shows, like they might not, I'm gonna freak out the person who's about to get in their car next to me. Yeah, my window's not gonna go up, so this should be fun. Yeah, just saw them unlock it. They're gonna be like, crazy lady. They are going to wonder, like they might not be as good of an interviewer yet, right? They might just have their same list of questions that they ask every time, and they don't know how to nuance stuff, right? So that could be part of it too. Like not you, but just kind of like, hey, it's just not that developed yet in terms of their ability to go off script and create something that's different. Let me know if that answers your question, Cindy, or if you have any follow-ups. I love these questions. Thank you for asking them. Is anybody into human design here? No, it's well, being a former professor and like advisor, I'm really into career, like personality assessments. Like I think it's Angela on The Office who's like, I enjoy being judged. I enjoy being assessed and told about myself, right? So I was trained in the Myers-Briggs. I just had a like a typing session on the Enneagram today because I had some questions about that. Yes, human design is like the woo-woo version of that. So it's not for everyone. But anyway, my human design is like, and if you decide to do it, if you decide to take a free test, it's very overwhelming. Like I had to hire somebody to help me with it. But anyway, the main thing is like, I love responding to questions. So this is like super helpful for me. That's what I'm good at. That's my superpower. All right. When you're a guest, a best practice for where to have people contact you. Such a great question. FAQ for sure. Karen, let me know. Send me a snapshot of your chart when you take it, because you're going to be like, what is this? You're either going to be like, Christina's the weirdest person ever, and I'm going to cancel my friend request, or you're going to be like, oh, this is overwhelming, but maybe I can learn one thing about it and I can help. But the thing about your question, Mandy, it's such a good one. It's such an important one. It is where most people go wrong. Okay. So like a lot of my clients will come in and be like, I am so freaking good at being interviewed. I love it. And I don't see any return from it. We talk about what they're offering, and usually there's something off there. All right. So the answer to your question is, it's not, oh, the trend today is just, sign up for this texting opt-in freebie and that will explode your business. The answer is, it depends on how your business is structured. How are you best set up to handle and nurture incoming leads? And it runs the gamut. Typically, yes, it's something free. Typically, yes, it's something that feels safe for the person, meaning most people, as much as you might feel like, hey, I'll just offer a free call with them, right? Like that's the closest way to get in. Most people are still scared, even if they fell in love with you on a podcast interview, of immediately booking a call with a stranger that they met on the internet, right? Sometimes they will, and that's awesome. When they bypass what you offered for free and they go straight to your website and they find your call link and they book a call, sweet, thanks. And most people are going to want to like do their own little validating process, right? Move through their fight or flight about a stranger on the internet. And so the best thing that you can do is you can offer something for free in a way that you're going to be able to capture them in a non-stranger on the internet, stalker style, and that you're going to be able to warm them up, right? And what that is different for every business. I'm happy to workshop that with you, Mandy, or someone else if you want to. But that's the truth, is that I'm going to make this up. You don't need a website to get clients. Like I tell my clients that all the time, right? So you don't have a website. You don't need to wait on creating a website or an updated website or whatever before you start going on podcasts. So if you're thinking that, like, stop, right? I have seen this work with someone going, oh, just friend request me on Facebook, because they had a business where every incoming friend was getting friended and messaged and warmed up, right? Or on LinkedIn or whatever. But you got to know what your lead gen and nurture is, where it's on point, instead of just going, oh, well, I'll create this like PDF or this ebook or whatever. And the thing is, if you're going to offer something specific that's not like just connect with me here, it's got to be aligned. It's got to bridge a gap between what you talked about in the interview and your program. It's got to be the logical next step, right? So after they hear what you talked about, what do they need in order to move them down the pipeline? Does that make sense? Amazing. Amazing. Okay. What else? What else, my friends? Is this okay, Mandy? I mean, it's kind of late to ask, but is it okay to do this in like just popcorn Q&A style?
I think it's absolutely wonderful. That way, the biggest, most burning questions are getting handled. And really, honestly, showing a solid bit of what your personality and energy is like, and why everyone should want to work with you if this is where they want to go. So what if I've never been on a podcast before? That, walk me through if I'm a complete neophyte.
Oh, thank you. And this also brings up the how to be more forward and self-promote with more confidence that Victoria asked at the beginning. So a lot of people have a lot of intimidation about being a podcast guest. I know I did. Like, it was something that always, like, I thought was a good idea and I was drawn to. And I had a friend in my very first group coaching program, circa 2015, summer 2015, who gave me a podcast pitch template, and it sat in my downloads folder along with where all the other freebies go to die for a year. And what finally got me out of my own way, I'm just gonna like normalize this stuff for you all for a minute. I'm gonna find it. It's gonna take me a second. And what finally got me out of my own way was that somebody invited me on their podcast. And I was guest writing at the time. Like I'd had some success being on the Huffington Post, and I was like making Ariana Huffington my friend, and I was doing all this stuff, and I was like writing, getting published, getting some leads. Somebody invited me their um on their show. And I was like, well, that couldn't be easier. I don't have to pitch anyone. I said yes. And I was 8 months pregnant, almost exactly 5 years ago. I was 8 months pregnant, double high risk, age and previous loss with my now 5-year-old. And I was at the high risk doc, and they were like, oh, you need to send you over to the hospital for some additional monitoring. Obviously was unplanned. And I'm sitting in a triage bed, and they had already hooked me up and everything was fine and it was all good, and they were going to release me, but paperwork. And it was time for my interview. And so I looked at the nurse and I said, can I just have the room for 20 minutes? Like, let's turn off the beeping, and you can watch me at the nurse's station, and we know everything's fine. I wanted to honor my commitment. Right. And I'm sure she didn't want to stress out the crazy high risk pregnant lady. So she was like, okay, weirdo. Right. And so I did my first interview 8 months pregnant from a hospital bed. And I loved it. And so it was for a small podcast. It was just me getting to like try it out. And what that showed me was that like this was worth doing. That it was easy, because all that it is someone asking you questions about something that you're passionate about. That's it. It's a one-on-one conversation being recorded that happens to get shared with other people. And if you can have a one-on-one conversation with people, which everybody here, I know that you can, because you're working on big stuff and you've already had a measure of success in other efforts. All this is just like changing the way that you think about it. Changing the way that you think about it. Does that make sense? I'm going to show you. One moment. I'm going to show you this picture if it will let me. Hang on. I'll just have to make it the best. All right, I found it. I multitasked my way into it. Here you go. This is from the official prezzo. You get a sense. There I am. Hey, crazy lady in a hospital bed doing my first podcast interview, smiling like a lunatic. The only reason my hair and makeup was done is I probably had something going on that morning. Not intentional. There you go. If I can do it 8 months pregnant in a hospital bed, double high risk, you can do it. Okay. Best practice for asking to appear on a show: send a resume, find a warm lead. Good question. Lots of different ways to do this. Right now, everybody and their sister is starting or has started a podcast. The thing is exploding. I was at the podcast movement, which is the biggest, I'm going to talk about nerd alert. That's me. It's the biggest conference for podcasters. Do you know who was one of the keynotes this year? Not only my friend John Lee Dumas. No, not me. Thank you. I decided to go too late, and it was, but I appreciate that. Mark freaking Cuban. Casual. He's investing in the space, right? He's investing in podcasts. It was too early in the morning for me to go, although it would have been cool. It's fine. But there were also some rappers, there were like legit celebrities at this little conference that was lightly attended because of COVID, right? People are getting into this. And so the reason that I share that is with the medium exploding, there are podcasts of all shapes and sizes. So people who have a podcast, hands down, 100% guaranteed. I know you do. If wherever you're most active on social, you could say you could ask people, hey, what are you listening to right now? And then you could look at those shows and see if they're taking guests, right? You could go to your favorite clients or your colleagues. What are you listening to, right? Who do you want to clone in your life? Find out what they're listening to. Find out if they accept guests, right? Yeah, you can ask on social. If you're gonna do cold outreach, I recommend a personalized pitch. So show that you did the research. Don't be lame and send the boilerplate pitches that I get from, the agencies and the publicists and stuff like that all the time, because guess what? They're in it for themselves and for their clients. Everybody knows it. You don't care about me. You want a placement for your client. I don't know your client. I don't care about them. Archive, right? Show up as a human who wants to form a relationship with this person. So it's quality over quantity. It means, yeah, you do a little more research to figure out if it's a fit, if they have listeners who are your people. And you customize that pitch just like whenever you were applying for jobs, you got to customize that resume. Otherwise, you don't look like you're a fit for anything, right? Same approach. Takes longer, works exponentially better. And then you start off the relationship with like, wow, this person really cares about me. I'm not a whichever way you swipe on Tinder, because I don't know, but that saying, the swipe up? Okay. Swipe left, swipe right? I don't know. So this is it's begin how you intend to continue, right? Somebody told me that when I first got married. She was like, Christine, I've been married 20 years. I'm gonna tell you something. If you're not gonna pick up his towels in 10 years, don't do it when you get back from the honeymoon. And I was like, you're happily married. That's great advice. I'm leaving that nasty towel on the floor, right? So begin how you intend to continue. And then when you show up, when you get the yes, they're already going to know that you know their show, that you care, that it matters, right? So then you're a lot more likely for them to respond to you in a certain kind of way during the interview, which the audience can feel, and they're more likely to reach out to you. And the host is more likely to ask you back, become a referrer, send you to other podcasting friends, because it all started with the way that you reached out. Does that make sense? Kira. What else, friends?
Well, we are coming up on time.
Yep.
So in terms of, the clientele that you have now, is there kind of an overarching, call it top 3, top 5 things that are the first things you work on when
Yep.
you work with a client?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's important to come in and do what I call identify your it factor. Right? So right at the beginning, we want to identify your it factor. What about your personal story and about what you've accomplished really make you stand out? We also want to power position you for podcasts. So this includes things like, what are you going to offer? What are those expert topics and how do we talk about them in a way that's magnetic? What are your stories that silently sell? So we don't want to be salesy, we don't want to be pitchy here, but we want to talk authentically about what we've accomplished or what we help our people with or what we're working on, right? And most of the people I work with are very mission impact driven, and so we are so good at helping other people get results, and we're like, I don't want to talk about myself, so I'm not going to go to podcast, right? You don't have to talk about yourself. This could all be in service of other people and talking about other people, but people need to see you as the beacon, right? Who's accomplished some stuff, which also probably has to do with worthiness and self-love and all this other crap that I'm working on and crying about right now. But hey, this is what it is, right? So Enneagram type 3 right here. So then the third thing is podcast offer alignment. Okay, so you gotta make some kind of connection between what you're selling on the back end, what kind of people that you want, and your area of expertise on the show. It doesn't have to be super obvious, here are the top 5 things I cover in my program. it can be like, here's the stuff I've overcome. Here's the mistakes I made along the way. Here's what I see most people doing wrong. Here's, it could take any number of angles, but it's that know, like, and trust, right? And so, and that's where a lot of people go wrong is like they go on, they have a really fun conversation, but they just forget that like in that too has got to be woven some strategery of how any of this connects to like what you do to serve people. And so, obviously it's nuanced because on the other side of that spectrum is like, I'm an author, I have a book, here are the talking points my publicist gave me, right? And when you show up as a human and you're relatable, then people aren't going to remember what you said as much as how they felt when they were listening to you. And so, what is your version of that authentic energy and your version of like being there to serve with intention?
I cannot think of a more perfect bow to have wrapped that up in, because talk about serving. Thank you for serving us today. Thank you for showing up authentically for this tribe of women and the group that's going to be able to watch this on replay. I really loved, another thing that in my notes from our first conversation, this it factor idea, the way that you described it of, you figure out all the pieces in the jar and then it's your job to make sure you get the right label on the jar. And that is a superpower unto itself, my love. So thank you so much. And we're a little pizza face. He wants another snack. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Me too.
I cannot thank you enough. We are grateful, and the best way to get a hold of you for our listeners.
So I have a checklist that goes into even more detail than we could get here tonight. There's the link. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Yay. Thank you all for the love. This is why I do it. Like, this is so energizing. So thank you for being here with me. And you can grab that checklist if you want, which is like pretty detailed and goes into more stuff than we had time to cover here tonight. So you can have that in front of you when you dive in.
Love it so much. Thank you again.
Thank you. Everybody have an amazing night or wherever you are in the world. Thanks. Bye.